I'm 75 now, and I can't remember anybody except the Queen Bee.
Everything shifted in complete silence. Just 7 minutes after the Privy Council sealed decision reached the royal residence, Catherine became the palace's leading authority, while Camilla's long-held influence began slipping away. A single signature reshaped the monarchy, one closed door marked the end of the old order, and one emotional reaction showed how deeply personal this change had become. Before we uncover what this turning point could mean for the royal family, be sure to subscribe so you never miss the latest updates. Calmly, Catherine studied the final page as William watched her read every line again. The Privy Council had reportedly placed palace operations, senior appointments, ceremonial planning, internal communications, and access to King Charles under her control whenever his health limited his duties. Quietly, she lowered the document and asked just one question. Had the king personally approved every part of it? Meanwhile, the sealed folder had reached the private apartments without passing through Camilla's office. That detail mattered. For years, control over schedules, briefings, and royal access had strengthened her position. Now that path was gone, making the silence around the king feel even more significant. Moments later, Camilla's private secretary entered without warning. He informed her that every instruction from her household would now need Catherine's approval. She gripped the chair, asked him to repeat it, and stared silently at the untouched breakfast before her. Surprisingly, humiliation came before anger. One condition left no room to challenge the decision. Catherine's authority could not be overturned, and personal influence or old connections no longer carried the same weight. Camilla realized her title remained, but much of the real control had shifted elsewhere. Watching closely, William noticed the pressure settling on Catherine before her first official briefing. He quietly reminded her that this was never a prize. It was a heavy responsibility, and many inside the palace would be waiting for her first mistake. Suddenly, a message from Camilla arrived. She requested a private meeting before the new arrangement became permanent. Catherine read the note once, placed it beside the official document, and chose not to respond right away. However, the palace was already facing a much bigger reality. This was no longer only about royal duties. It had become a deeply personal struggle between two women whose positions within the monarchy had always carried far greater meaning than the public ever saw. For years, Catherine and Camilla had appeared together at royal events, standing side by side with carefully managed smiles. But behind those public moments, both understood that the future of the monarchy could never truly belong to them equally. Instead, Catherine came to represent the monarchy's future, built on duty and stability. Camilla's story reflected years of struggle, sacrifice, and a place she had spent decades trying to secure. Now, one official decision forced those two paths into direct conflict. Despite the promotion, Catherine felt no sense of triumph. She knew every choice she made would be judged as proof of whether she was truly ready to become queen beside William one day. What should have felt like destiny now felt like a difficult test. Quietly, William reminded her that power always brings problems with it. She was not only accepting a new role but also inheriting old rivalries, personal grudges, and years of palace tension. He wanted to help, but he also knew she had to prove herself on her own. Meanwhile, Camilla carried a different kind of pain. She had survived public criticism, family resistance, and years of feeling like she would never fully belong. Now she believed one official decision was wiping away everything she had fought to achieve. Slowly, as a pearl bracelet was removed from her wrist, she asked whether everyone else had known before she did. Her voice stayed calm, but the disappointment behind the question was impossible to miss. Elsewhere, Charles carefully read the private briefing twice. He trusted Catherine's judgment, yet he also knew Camilla would see this change as a personal betrayal. He wrote her a handwritten note, assuring her that her title and public role remained untouched. But one promise was missing. He never suggested her former influence would return. Alone, Camilla read the letter in silence. She rested her thumb on the final sentence before folding it with great care. The loss of influence hurt, but the fact that it came through the man she had always defended made it even harder to accept. Soon afterward, Catherine received Camilla's request for a private meeting. With William beside her, she chose not to answer immediately. Too much kindness could appear weak, while too much distance could deepen the divide. Her decision would shape the kind of leader she wanted to become. Yet the conflict had started long before the council's announcement. Weeks earlier, one royal event had quietly exposed the growing tension inside the palace. At first, it looked like an ordinary ceremony. Bright lights, formal uniforms, and practiced smiles created the perfect public image. But behind that display, the palace was already divided. During the reception, Catherine gave one instruction. Camilla publicly reversed it. Charles witnessed the confusion, and from that moment, the private disagreement could no longer remain hidden. Earlier that day, Catherine had adjusted the king's arrival plans to reduce the strain on his health. She moved the receiving line to a smaller room, giving Charles a shorter route and easier access to a private corridor. However, Camilla viewed the change differently. Just before Charles arrived, she ordered staff to restore the original arrangement, believing the shorter ceremony would make both the king and her own position appear weaker. Immediately, the hall fell into confusion. Staff moved chairs, replaced instruction cards, and struggled to follow two different sets of orders. When Catherine entered, she stopped at once. Seeing the changes, she calmly asked who had overturned her decision. The room went completely silent. Then Camilla stepped forward and remarked that palace tradition should not change simply because the younger generation felt concerned. Carefully, William stayed back. He understood that stepping in too soon could make Catherine's authority seem dependent on him. Firmly, Catherine replied that the decision had been made to protect the king's health, not for her own convenience. Her tone remained calm, but the message behind her words was unmistakable. Moments later, Charles arrived before the disagreement had truly ended. He followed the longer route, greeted every guest, and completed the full reception despite the strain. Afterward, behind closed doors, the effort finally caught up with him. He sat down heavily, struggled to regain his breath, and quietly ordered everyone to leave the room. Later that evening, the king requested every written instruction linked to the ceremony. The records revealed that Camilla's office had deliberately reversed the approved medical plan. The issue was no longer about protocol. It had become a matter of the king's well-being. As a result, the Privy Council launched a formal review. After examining the situation, its members concluded that two competing chains of command could no longer run the same royal household. Eventually, Catherine agreed to meet Camilla. By then, both women understood they were no longer discussing what had happened at Windsor. They were facing the conflict that had been building for weeks. This time, no aides were present. No official record was kept. At Camilla's request, only the two of them entered the room, with the Privy Council's declaration placed between them. Calmly, Catherine arrived ready to discuss responsibility. Camilla walked in determined to defend the position she had spent years earning. Within minutes, polite conversation disappeared, replaced by emotions that had remained hidden for far too long. Promptly, Catherine reached the private room and found Camilla waiting beside the fireplace. Neither woman sat until the official declaration was placed on the table, making the meeting feel more like a final ruling than a discussion. Directly, Camilla asked if Catherine had wanted sole authority all along. The question turned an official decision into a personal accusation, suggesting that ambition had been hiding behind quiet discipline. Firmly, Catherine replied that she had never asked for the role or negotiated for it, but she would not refuse a duty meant to protect the king and restore stability inside the palace. Gradually, Camilla's composure began to crack. She reminded Catherine of the years she had endured public criticism, family rejection, and endless scrutiny just to stand beside Charles. Now she believed she was being treated as a problem that needed to disappear. Respectfully, Catherine acknowledged those sacrifices but refused to step back. She answered that loyalty to the king could never justify ignoring decisions made to protect his health. Then she brought up the Windsor reception. She explained that it had not been a minor disagreement. It had left Charles exhausted and proved how dangerous conflicting orders could become. Slowly, Camilla pushed the red folder across the table and challenged Catherine to look her in the eye while taking everything she had built. Instead, Catherine held her gaze but left the folder untouched. She understood the papers were not the real issue. The deepest wound was the feeling of humiliation. Finally, Camilla warned that the same council which granted authority could one day take it away. Quietly, Catherine replied that she intended to give them no reason to do so. Her voice stayed calm, but the message carried unmistakable finality. Without another word, Camilla turned and closed the door behind her. Catherine remained alone, gripping the chair as the emotional weight of the moment finally settled in. However, the meeting solved very little. The real source of Catherine's authority had never come from personal ambition or William's support alone. Instead, the real foundation of Catherine's authority came from a confidential agreement signed by the one person Camilla believed would always stand beside her. At first, Camilla blamed the Privy Council. Then she suspected William. Later, she confronted Catherine. But the hardest truth remained hidden inside a private document carrying Charles's own signature. Unexpectedly, it became clear that the king had not simply accepted the transfer after pressure from others. He had helped create it himself. His decision came from duty, concern for the monarchy, and the limits of his own strength. To Camilla, however, it felt like the deepest betrayal. Months earlier, Charles had quietly approved the contingency plan. Long before the palace received the final declaration, the document allowed one trusted senior royal to take operational control if the king's health made shared leadership too risky. Originally, Charles saw it as a safety measure. In the end, it became the very decision that shifted power away from his wife. Carefully, the king chose Catherine after reviewing confidential reports from several palace departments. Her office had consistently resolved scheduling problems, staffing issues, and communication failures more efficiently than anyone else. Those results mattered because poor coordination was no longer just embarrassing. It was draining the king's energy, delaying important work, and allowing personal conflicts to affect the crown itself. Alone in his study, Charles reviewed the final authorization one last time. When Camilla's name appeared, he paused, set down his pen, and remembered the strain that followed the Windsor reception. Slowly, he signed the document. He understood it would deeply hurt the woman who had supported him for years. But he also believed that protecting the monarchy had to come before personal feelings. Meanwhile, William learned the truth only after the council had reached its decision. He had been intentionally kept out of the process so no one could claim he had secured the role for Catherine. Ironically, that protected Catherine from one accusation while leaving her completely unprepared for the responsibility that followed. Another sealed record made the decision even stronger. It revealed that Camilla's office had already received several warnings after changes to the king's care schedule were made without medical approval. To protect Charles's marriage, the council kept his involvement secret. They did not want the transfer to appear as a direct rejection from the king himself. Eventually, Camilla's secretary noticed the connection. A reference number on the declaration matched the earlier contingency file. After checking it twice, she immediately requested a meeting with Charles. However, the reply came through Catherine's office. The request could not be approved immediately. That single decision changed everything. What had been private heartbreak soon became a visible struggle, forcing palace staff to decide which authority they would now follow. Inside the palace, power rarely disappears with dramatic announcements. It fades through unanswered messages, redirected paperwork, changed schedules, and doors that no longer open when expected. By the end of the afternoon, Camilla still held her title, wore the royal jewels, and stood beside the king. But the system that had once answered to her without question was quietly moving in a different direction. Gradually, every small procedural change delivered the same painful message. The new system was already working without Camilla. Confidently, Catherine led her first senior household meeting. She announced that all schedules, appointments, expenses, and ceremonial plans would now pass through one central office. The goal was simple: avoid confusion and protect the king from unnecessary pressure. Nearby, William remained silent. He attended only as an observer, making it clear that Catherine's authority belonged to her alone. Carefully, Catherine understood why that mattered. If William defended every decision, critics could claim her leadership depended on him instead of her own judgment. Meanwhile, Camilla picked up the phone and contacted the king's equerry, requesting a private meeting with Charles. Politely, the reply came back that the king's limited energy had already been reserved for medical appointments and essential state business under Catherine's approved schedule. Silently, Camilla lowered the receiver. She asked whether she now needed permission to see her own husband before dismissing everyone from the room. Although her title remained the same, the refusal revealed what she had truly lost: The greatest form of influence inside the palace had always been access to the king. Now, even that rested in someone else's hands. Soon afterward, 3 experienced staff members were reassigned from Camilla's circle to Catherine's team. Rumors spread quickly, and each transfer made the shift in power impossible to ignore. Later, Charles received a handwritten note accusing him of choosing procedure over trust. He read every line twice but found himself unable to respond. Before saying anything, he needed to understand how Camilla had uncovered his role. Quietly, Catherine instructed staff to protect Camilla's rooms, personal privileges, and ceremonial status. She refused to let authority become an act of humiliation. Even so, the pain remained. After receiving a dinner schedule with fewer guests and a shorter evening for Charles, Camilla tore the paper apart. Moments later, she gathered every piece, afraid anyone might see how deeply the change had affected her. By then, the palace had accepted Catherine's leadership. Yet one private conversation still had the power to change everything. Finally, Charles entered the room alone. There were no advisors, no official documents, and no royal ceremony standing between them. At first, Camilla was ready to confront him, but the moment she saw how exhausted he looked, the atmosphere changed completely. Directly, Charles admitted the truth. He did not deny signing the document, blame William, or hide behind royal procedure. Instead, he confessed that choosing Catherine had been his own decision and explained the fear that led him there. Earlier, Charles had cancelled his final engagement and arrived without his equerry, asking that the doors remain closed until the conversation ended. This was no longer about palace offices. It was about a marriage that had survived years of scandal, criticism, and pressure. Slowly, Camilla placed the contingency document on the table. Keeping her hand over it, she looked at Charles and asked only one question. "Was it you?" Without hesitation, the king answered. Charles answered with one word. "Yes." He admitted that he had approved the plan himself. Quietly, the king explained that Windsor had convinced him the palace could no longer operate under 2 competing chains of command. One office had reduced his schedule, another had reversed it, and he had paid the physical price while others dismissed it as a simple procedural issue. Immediately, Camilla's anger gave way to heartbreak. She asked why he had placed more faith in an official document than in the woman who had stood beside him through his darkest years. Sadly, Charles replied that he had never questioned her love. What troubled him was that protecting her position had begun to outweigh protecting his health. Those words hit hard. He admitted Catherine had been chosen because she could make difficult decisions without seeing every limit as a personal insult. Silently, Camilla looked away and slowly lifted her hand from the file lying on the table. Then, instead of sitting across from him, she moved beside him. At last, she confessed that the Windsor incident had not been the only mistake. Gently, Charles took her hand. He promised she would always remain his wife, his closest companion, and his queen. But one thing he said could not change. Operational authority would not be returned. Finally, Camilla agreed not to challenge Catherine in public. She did not see it as surrender. She saw it as protecting the man she still loved. Although their private conversation ended the conflict between them, the story was already spreading far beyond the palace walls. By sunrise, what had been a private royal crisis had become national news. Television broadcasts changed their schedules, newspapers replaced their front pages, and crowds gathered outside the palace searching for answers. Surprisingly, it was not the council's official statement that captured public attention. It was a single photograph showing Catherine stepping forward while Camilla remained behind. That image spoke louder than any announcement. Across the front page, "One Palace, One Authority" appeared above a photograph of Catherine entering the sovereign's entrance with the red council folder under her arm. That entrance was normally used only by those with direct access to the king's working household. The photograph sent a powerful message. Catherine was no longer standing near the center of power, she had stepped into it. Soon afterward, broadcasters described the decision as one of the biggest internal changes in the modern royal household. Palace operations that had once been divided would now answer to a single authority. The king's health had been affected by conflicting palace decisions, leading Catherine to take full responsibility for royal operations. Outside Buckingham Palace, some people welcomed the change as a step toward stability, while others felt sympathy for Camilla. Catherine avoided celebrating her new role and insisted every official message focus on duty and the king's well-being. As both women arrived for the same royal reception, the nation watched closely. Instead of taking center stage, Catherine waited for Camilla and invited her to enter beside her, choosing respect over triumph. Camilla accepted, showing dignity despite losing much of her influence. Charles understood that protecting the crown sometimes required painful personal choices, while William admired Catherine's restraint more than her authority. In the end, the future of the monarchy was shaped not by victory, but by duty, compassion, and sacrifice. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more royal family updates.